Benjamin Castle are Americans. Watching the footy.
Liam Ryan saying, kick it my way, I want to jump over the pack, and here he comes! Ryan!
This is Buddy Franklin! This is the greatest showman!
Got the handball off to Myers. Myers looking for the lead of Stengel. Gee, they're good. Gee, they're sharp. Razzle dazzle Rioli.
Oh, who else? McDonald!
From inside the centre square. Boys kick the goal. Boys kick the goal. From inside the centre. Foul. Oh, they can't believe
that. Good time of day. Welcome, come along for the ride on episode 156 of Americans Watching the Footy, the Joe Rogan experience of footy podcasts. That's something that we were actually called by one of our listeners, Mackay Bay Beers on Twitter. I'm Benjamin Castle, alongside my brother Ethan. Where's your son?
He just left. He made it very clear he wanted out.
Brian Harambe is very clear about when he wants in or out of places. He makes himself heard.
He's good at yelling at the door.
I wanted to jump right into things here for the Easter round, but kind of been a whole story today with everything coming out about drug policies from the AFL and teams potentially faking injuries so that players get out of games without it being a strike against them. Seems like there's a conflict between kind of the AFL policies and what else the state and international anti-doping agencies want, or maybe they're following stricter policies. There's just a lack of transparency about this, and it's a separate issue from Essendon.
I mean, I think these things can have different policies and not interfere with each other. That's okay. You can have different regulations than various international bodies, and you can have different things from, the
harsher regulations in particular. But the thing is, here, I think, more just the falsifying of stuff on injury reports seems to be where a lot of people are taking issue.
Yeah, what stuff was that? Can you explain?
So this is about if teams have, game day positive tests in-house, laid outs just kind of disguised as other injuries.
For drugs?
Yes. Now, I like what Max Lawn from Fox Footy said about it. He said, it's good that the drug policy is focused on medical treatment rather than punitive action. The question is, where do you draw the line between what hard drugs could also come into the fore as being kind of performance enhancing? I mean, I think we could say that cocaine is a performance-enhancing drug in some cases, and Joel Smith would probably agree.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
I mean, that's the difficult part, is is it assisting with their performance? If not, there's no need for overlap between, your policy for steroids and your policy for stuff like this. If there is overlap, that's where it gets difficult.
I think there's something that we needed to get out of the way.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of insight or transformative commentary here. So if that's what you're looking for, go find it somewhere else.
We're not, experts on ASADA or WADA policies. And and this is, something that's very separate from, say, a PED scandal like what Essendon had.
The one thing that I think is worth pointing out is leagues and various governing bodies for sports can have different rules for drugs than, say, legal ramifications. That's totally okay if one is more severe than the other or not. There's nothing wrong with that.
I don't see anything wrong with that either. Oh, everybody uses cocaine. Be smarter about it if you're an athlete.
Yeah.
Know your time and place. With that, I think it now is time to get into the Easter round previews. 8 games again, as the 2010s expansion brethren of Greater Western Sydney and Gold Coast don't have the honor of playing each other this week. However, they will be facing off at Summit Sports Park in the Gather Round for a pretty high-profile Sunday afternoon contest.
I love that one of the biggest games is going to be out in the middle of nothing.
They'll get, I think the stands can expand to 7,500, but it almost...
I didn't watch much of that game closely last year, the one that was played there. It involved North, that's why.
That was Brisbane and North.
But I'm here for this, whereas, Norwood is in Adelaide. You can easily see a game at Norwood and at the Adelaide Oval in the same day.
It's not so easy for Mount Barker, and in the future when they expand into Barossa, that won't be that viable. I would love for the Eagles at some point to go over there just because that's in the vicinity of Shannon Hearn's hometown of Angaston. So
Every day we get closer to our dream.
AFL footy in UCLA? Yes. We need a preseason clash in UCLA. It would convenience absolutely nobody, which is exactly the way we want it. So with those two teams already discussed, I guess we move on to a desperation Holy Thursday between the Lions and Pies at the Gabba. This has become a pretty traditional Easter Thursday clash. And with this being the grand final rematch, I mean, there was already going to be more expectation leading up to this game. And then we have the first time both grand finalists have started at least 0-2. The Lions lost at Freo before their bye without Lockie Neal, while the Pies dropped Spud's game and are 0-3. This will be available to more American audiences because it'll be on Fox Sports 2 at 4:30 a.m. Eastern, 1:30 a.m. Pacific on Thursday. For Australians, that's 7:30 p.m. in Victoria, as well as New South Wales and Tasmania, 6:30 p.m. local time in Queensland. I believe it's a week from Sunday where Australia ends their daylight time.
I believe that's right.
So for most of the season, the difference between where we are in California and the Pacific states of Australia is 17 hours.
Yeah, on one hand, I like having games start at 7 or 7:45. On the other, I like having an additional hour to do other stuff because it's hard to get locked into early footy.
Like taking notes and stuff as we are while we also are trying to have dinner.
Or watch NCAA tournament games or, any of that.
Yeah. Thanks to the grand final, this was a triple up last year.
We just checked. The last quadruple up was, 2010, if you include the grand final replay?
Yeah, and before that, 2005 with the Swans and Eagles. And now that we don't have replays of the grand final anymore, quadruple up necessitates a qualifying and grand final contest. Now, from round 4 last year, Pies still a chance?
Yes. I totally forgot about that. The whole Pies are still a chance thing. It was very silly, though.
I mean, the bigger thing I remember about that game is just Brisbane bringing more numbers to the contest and really capitalizing off turnovers. Charlie Cameron had 6 goals and Cam Rayner finally went forward and had 4. And I still think he didn't get any votes for it.
They met again at Marvel in round 23, where Collingwood seemed to play like shit.
They were without 3 members of their premiership team, DeGoey, Hill, and Moore. But once again, the Lions took advantage of turnovers. Charlie Cameron with 4 more goals. He just has been on a tear lately against Collingwood. In their last 5 meetings, counting the grand final, he has scored 20 goals to 1 behind. But that also wasn't the biggest story in that Lions 4-goal win.
No, the biggest story was Devin Robertson's rip jumper.
And the man's cut. He had a little over 11,000 Instagram followers before that game, added more than 30,000 by the time the round ended, and is now up over 92,000.
Also, when you Google him, go to Google Images, the first photo is just like his official team photo, then shirtless, 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 shirt, shirt, shirtless, 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 shirt, shirtless, shirt, 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 shirtless. And then for their, there's still more. God, there's so many of these.
I think we've gone over the grand final in enough detail at this point, though. I think.
Yeah, but
I mean, the Lions had issues with their defensive 50 matchups a lot of that game. Bobby Hill won the Norm Smith unanimously, and Craig McRae won the day of the weekend. Kid born Saturday morning, Premiership coach Saturday afternoon and evening. The next day celebrated a reunion with his Lions 2003 team.
So, I mean, really, he also kind of won 9 months before that.
Right. Appropriate considering the title of our last episode.
On the injury front for the Lions, Lockie Neal should be back. Missed round 1 with a hamstring injury. Darcy Gardner's knee injury was minor, so he's good to go. But Connor McKenna's going to be out for 3 weeks with a hamstring injury, so who gets in? I mean, there's possibility they go with Jackson Pryor, but there's also a chance, just going off of who played well as a halfback in the VFL, Shadow Brain.
Shadow Brain. Shadow Brain. Shadow Brain.
Please, God, let this happen.
I just want to see Steely Green versus Shadow Brain in the battle of the names when the Lions and Tigers play each other.
I feel like we could win over at least a few Americans
with those names alone.
Yes, just like tune in to watch a guy named Shadow Brain play against a guy named Steely Green.
It needs to happen.
Round 10. I believe, is the only chance.
Doesn't seem like a great opportunity, but who knows?
Not impossible.
If they don't go with anybody from the VFL, then they could slide Dane Zorko back and open up Jimmy Tunstall to be a utility player. So a lot of options there. Heartbreaking stuff, though, for Tom Duday. He was set to make his Lions debut, had finished rehabbing from his ACL, and then partially tore it again on Tuesday.
Yeah, this legitimately sucks.
Man cannot catch a break. What is this, I guess, a fourth tear of an ACL for him? 2 on each knee?
You know what I thought of when you said heartbreaking, right?
No. Because this is genuinely heartbreaking.
Hang on, this isn't really going to carry over on the podcast because I'm showing him a photo.
Heartbreaking, the worst person you know just made a great point.
Yep.
And that's a real person.
I know. I like that I can just show the photo of this guy and people know exactly what it means.
Isn't it like a real dude from Spain or something?
I think he's Spanish. Just like, random dude from Hungary who became known as Hide the Pain Herald.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's just a guy in Spain. Josep Maria Garcia.
Yeah, it's like Andrash or whatever his name is from Hungary becoming Hide the Pain Herald. Helen.
Andrash Arado.
Helen, be compliance. Give him the science.
There's so much fun stuff you can find in stock footage. If you list of Hungarians,
this is on Wikipedia.
Under the C also for Hide the Pain Herald. Heartbreaking, the worst person you know just made a great point. List of internet phenomena. List of Hungarians.
Well done, Andrash.
Yeah, well, he's listed under the scientists category because he's an award-winning electrical engineer.
Cool. Some milestone watching this Holy Thursday game, getting back to that. The 100th for Brandon Starcevich, and if he plays, the 200th for Tom Mitchell.
There's been a lot of talk about Tom Mitchell just in terms of him. What was it that he didn't know?
I don't know. I just remember him being managed for round 1, which felt very strange.
There was something that was considered common knowledge that he didn't know. I don't know. I'll have to ask next time.
Ethan, this came in about 11 minutes ago. Steel side bottom managed per Tom Morris.
Okay. Do we have any other team news for this week yet? Or
not yet. I mean, I feel like that's a green light for Mitchell in his 200th over side bottom? Question mark?
Yeah, I think this is kind of like a
wake up call.
Yeah, it's kind of like a you suck management.
Just did not expect side bottom to be the type to get it. In the VFL, Charlie Dean and John Noble responded well to their respective demotions, and there's a whole group of players who we could see get debuts in black and white. Recent draft picks such as Ed Allen and Joe Richards, supplemental pickup Lockie Sullivan, and 4-year Saint Jack Vitale. That's all kind of in that midfield and half forward mix. So if Mitchell does stay out, or maybe if they need to rest someone else in there, I don't think it's highly likely though, especially with Will Hoskin-Elliott having just been managed and a guy like Harvey Harrison having already gotten some games in him.
Will we get Collingwood have swung the axe? How many changes do you think they make?
How many changes do I think they make? I think they will make 2, with one of them being Hoskin-Elliott. I don't think there's going to be anything super crazy here.
Hoskin-Elliott out.
Maybe 3. I think Hoskin-Elliott and Noble could get back in May. I don't think you'd swap Dean for Frampton because of how Frampton did against Harris Andrews.
Wait.
I think it would be tough, but maybe Reef McInnes goes out and they have Billy Frampton go forward and Dean in the back because of what Frampton did to cut off Harris Andrews in the grand final. Maybe try that again. Lions enter as 16.5-point favorites, and they've won the last 4 meetings at the GABA, but the Pies having not won there since round 5 of 2019. This will be a double up this year, with them actually playing at the G in round 23. Proper scheduling. This is a huge question mark game for so many reasons. The Lions with very unclear structure now at halfback, with both Coleman and McKenna out. The Pies' continued struggles in the middle with some of their older pieces, and us being unsure of just how big of an axe they will decide to swing. Giggity.
I'm thinking this line should be more like 13.5. I don't know.
Because we record this always around midnight, we often get the teams dropping around this time, especially early in the years, so
we're going to go a little off course here because we're going to play a little Thursday Team Mad Libs.
Ethan, you're going to fire away here. How many changes and where? We already know about side bottom being managed. I would imagine
We got a total of 5 changes, including side bottom.
Okay, so side bottom is out. Tom Mitchell remains in?
Yes, we're going to do the rest of this as Mad Libs.
Okay, so 200 there for Tom Mitchell.
Collingwood veteran Steele side bottom will miss Thursday night's grand final replay against Brisbane, while the Lions have recalled Blank.
Is it the obvious with Lachie Neale?
No,
But he is back, yes?
he is back,
Okay,
but that is not who it was referring to here. He is back, though.
okay. Oh, in that case, the Lions have probably recalled the man who should have been in the grand final, Jack Payne.
Correct.
Good. Surprised we hadn't mentioned him earlier. But if you recall, Payne missed the prelim injured, and Darcy Gardner did well enough on Charlie Curnow. But without Payne in the grand final, the defensive matchups were all out of whack. And Brandon Starsvich, who will be playing his 100th this week, got victimized.
All right. Side bottom has been managed for the clash at the Gabba, while Blank has been dropped by the Pies.
Blank has been dropped. Okay, there are levels to this. So I think the 3 ins for the Pies would be...
There are 2 ins for the Pies and 3 for the Lions.
Are the 2 ins then Will Hoskin-Elliott and John Noble?
Yes and yes. And you know side bottom is one of the outs.
Hoskin-Elliott comes back in after being managed. Noble coming in. He's done a lot in halfback. And Oleg Markov was subbed this past week. Is it Markov?
Yes. All right, so for Brisbane, we've got 2 of their ins. Who's the third? I can give you a hint. I kind of already hinted a little at it, but I don't think it's going to make the recording when I had hinted at it, but...
So Payne and Neale.
Yes. Who's the third?
Firstly, is Payne in for Gardner? Is Gardner good to go with his knee, or is this just like an extra tall defender?
Gardner has been omitted.
Okay, so maybe a little bit of injury management there. Maybe the knee wasn't as good.
And you know that Connor McKenna's out. So who's the other in and who's the other out for Brisbane?
Ugh. Now
It's the in you can get. The out might be a little tougher.
So, was it someone that we had mentioned previously, like Jackson Pryor or Jimmy Tunstall?
No.
Okay, so it's not anything. In terms of the smaller movers there, unless it's a Shadow Ray debut.
It's not.
Fuck. Have they played this year?
I don't think so. But yeah, there's a guy who has not played yet this year.
Okay. Are the Lions going tall?
Yes, that was what the headline that said.
Oh, okay. In that case, then, Darcy Fort.
Correct.
The former Cat.
Never forget when he ruined everything by kicking a behind. I liked when he could only kick goals.
What was it, 12 to start his career or something?
It was a lot.
So that's the extra in.
Yeah, but who is the other out?
Well, Kyle Lemon was a sub in round 1.
It is not.
Okay. Is it somebody else who's on the taller side?
Great question.
Because I'm thinking
Define taller.
I'm thinking 6'2" or taller.
No. This guy's just about 6 feet.
Okay. So Ryan Lester stays in. They're really going tall.
Correct.
Wow. That's interesting there. Maybe try to have another tall to be able to kind of counteract the expected Frampton job on Andrews. Huh. Younger or older?
He is older.
Older, huh?
Yes.
Not McCarthy, no?
No.
I would think not. Midfielder, though?
Yes.
Then Jared Lyons.
Yep.
Okay, that was pretty efficient, actually. So for the Lions, Fort, Neale, and Payne in for...
Gardner, Lyons, and McKenna.
Thank you. And the Pies, it's Hoskin-Elliott and Noble for Markov and Sidebottom.
Yeah.
All reasonable. And I'm glad we had the chance to talk about Jack Payne there.
We've got 2 games on Good Friday. First off, North Melbourne still gets Good Friday, which I had the debate, or I kind of presented the question, should they, be kicked off of it because they've been so bad during it and they've just been bad altogether. Last year, at least, they were kind of competitive. They ended up losing by 23, and Carlton became the opponent. It had been the Bulldogs for a while.
But I think after Josh Bruce kicked 10 on them, they wanted to make some changes.
And I am totally down with someone else getting that, kind of until they suddenly became good, which is still hard to believe. If the Detroit Lions got knocked off at Thanksgiving, I wouldn't have been opposed.
They did draw very well last year. It was the biggest Marvel crowd in a decade with over 49,000. But of course, not Mackay Bowl, because it's actually just one Mackay.
Yeah. Now, this year, that won't be an issue with Banoff at Essendon.
Well, it won't be for these teams anyway. So, Harry, you're fine to play, obviously. I remember Jesse Motlop and Adam Chera
Not woof.
lifting in the midfield and going into the forward 50 in terms of just being more aggressive with their kicks and applying some pressure.
I don't, but I like Jesse Motlop, so that doesn't surprise me.
And Motlop could be straight back into the lineup this week, returning from a toe injury. A lot of ins could be possible for the Blues, with Elijah Hollins having served his cocaine possession suspension, Caleb Marchbank having gotten over an illness. Those two might start in the twos, but I would expect Motlop and Jacob Wiedering to return right away. The fact that the Blues have allowed no more than 84 points in a game without Jacob Wiedering?
I mean, it was 81 and 84? That's not amazing or anything, but
Reasonable enough.
81, it was 85.
85 and 81, right, because it was 86-85. I think they scored 86 in both their games, but two different ways. Jack Martin finished rehabbing his knee injury, but then he did his hamstring minorly, so another week out there, at least. Sam Walsh is targeting around 5 return from his back problems.
Hey, I guess this will be Zach Fisher's first game against Carlton.
Yep, that would be it. Inconsistent to start his tenure in North.
That's not one that's really getting much play in terms of hype and attention and such.
Yeah, I think there was a lot more like Yvonne Soldo playing Richmond last week.
Yes, significantly more.
Despite Fisher having played over 100 games for the Blues.
On the North Melbourne side, looks like Will Phillips had 30 disposals and 6 clearances down in the VFL against the Bullants.
Sorry, Leo.
I want to see the Bullants play Coburg. I think that would be really fun.
I mean, they do. Everybody.
They don't all play each other the way that schedule works.
I think they did last year, though. And the Ants won.
The Bullants also haven't tweeted anything in forever. Anyway.
Yeah, North beat the Ants. Also in that game, Miller Bergman played through a fractured jaw and played well, but after surgery on that is now going to miss a month. The real watch out of North's twos is Tyler Sellers, their supplemental pickup. I mean, he'd been on their VFL list, but got signed to a top-flight contract and scored 6 goals. So do you add another tall into the mix there?
I mean, the way Paul Curtis played off of it, it's more just what would you lose? What would you be taking out?
It was Charlie Lazaro being subbed out and Eddie Ford going in. So, I mean, that's another taller forward type there. Not sure. Maybe if you'd give Sellers a shot. I mean, Sellers doesn't seem like the type that would be a sub, though, with a bigger body and maybe a bit less full field ability.
Okay, so not only do the Ants play Coburg, they play twice, rounds 13 and 20. We move.
We will tune in. Also, for the first time since 2007, the Roos and Blues will double up. It only took Ben Mackay moving to Essendon.
More proof that there's only one.
Also on Good Friday, you've got Freo and Adelaide out at Optus, the reverse of an Easter round fixture last year.
I'm going to be upfront here. This might be, compared to the amount of hype surrounding it, the game I'm most excited for this round.
Why? Because you're thinking about Heath Chapman while you're in the bathtub?
No, that's your thing. Stop projecting.
That was also 2 years ago now in round 1. Inaccurate flag mantle saved by a game-winning spoil on the goal line. I think it was on Ben Keys in the final seconds.
Yeah, I just like this game because, I mean, you would have probably guessed both these teams would have been 1-1, or maybe the Crows at 2-0. You certainly wouldn't have expected Freo to beat the Lions. And, look, if Freo win this game, there could be some fallout, some really hot takes between Flagmantle and Matthew Nick's stuff. And
I mean, he already got extended this year.
I know, both did.
I mean, Nick's for multiple years, though.
Wait, why are they playing on Good Friday? Shouldn't they be playing on David Mundy Thursday?
Ha!
But really, though, of all the weird things to call something, Thursday and Monday are halfway across the week from each other.
I think we already had this bit in a prior episode.
Oh, well, whoever came up with it is the dumbest boy alive.
If anybody understands that, I will be highly impressed, because I don't think our pal John listens to this. Unfortunately, the sandwich shop is still closed.
So last year, Crows won a game that I really can't remember much of anything about by 39.
That was an Easter Saturday afternoon game where the Crows kind of did more of what 2022 Flagmantle did, and Freo abandoned their old game plan, just kept things really slow and in a way that didn't fit their list profile at all. The thing that I noted about this game is we called it. Why we called it, meaning just like the players that we all hyped up leading into this game and had been fans of for a while performed. And the people that we questioned, they done poorly. Riley Philthorpe, Lockie Gallant, Bailey Banfield, who was a forward, all ticks. Liam Henry, though that changed in the later part of the season, Matt Taberner and Nathan Wilson, all crosses.
Or as we say, check marks and X's.
I'm not more used to ticks and crosses thanks to the chaps.
Nat 5 got subbed out last week. I thought it was management. Looks like it might have had something to do with back soreness, but he should be good to go.
Was surprised that Jake Romero was the sub, and that was what also made me think it was management. I would not be shocked if we see...
Well, was O'Meara getting work back in? Wasn't he coming back from something?
Maybe, I think, but this week it would just make sense for him to actually get into the 22 in full. Not sure where you would move things to make it happen, but it seems logical enough to me. So good luck to Will Brody and Neil Erasmus. This will be the 250th game for Brody Smith. I did not realize he's been playing that long.
I didn't until people were talking about him like last week saying like, he's had a great career, but this kick was really bad. The one that just kind of went out of bounds. Do you remember in his own 50 under no pressure? So like he barely made contact with the ball.
I do not really remember this, but a lot of other things happened in that game. So I would not be shocked if you were, but it seems right.
It only led to a behind. That's why.
Okay.
It did bring the lead up to an even 24. It was with a minute left in the third quarter.
Yeah, so Smith was drafted 14th overall back in 2010. Damn. And a South Australian native having played for Woodville West Torrens. So it should be a pretty good celebration of his career there. Another thing to look for in the back is maybe Dan Curtin could get a hometown debut. Pick 8 was played well enough to start things at the Sandful after having to battle injuries from the jump. I remember his slide being like one of the bigger stories of the draft, even though it was only down to 8.
He would happen after I dropped him from my fantasy team. Classic, not draft.
Okay. Still don't really do a classic.
I don't do it closely. I'm just kind of like, let's just try this and make sure we got a full team in there. But yeah, it's nowhere near as important as the actual league, where I think I'm going to be a player short this week.
Oh, okay.
Well, if Curtin gets in, then I can undo that trade and bring in somebody else. Okay, I'm just thinking out loud now, but
who are you, Ed Sheeran?
Oh,
way too easy.
I don't have anything against Ed Sheeran. That was just really fucking bad.
Yeah.
Let's do that and hope he gets in. I'm gonna.
Okay.
Yeah, I found a solution here.
Looking elsewhere on the ground, Lockie Shull bounced back from his demotion after a very quiet round 1. The bigger thing that I'm looking for from that round 1 game that didn't happen last round is that Jake Saligo should be used more on the inside. You think about his impact once he came in as the sub, really fitting those wet conditions and just having the physicality that kind of helps lead up to somebody like Luke Pedler who could continue that into the forward 50.
Remember, you thought Luke Pedler was going to have a good game last week.
I thought he could have been a bit of a better matchup against Tom Stewart, but credit to Stewart for working through that in his own milestone game. This is just the second head-to-head meeting at Optus Stadium between these two clubs. The first one was in the stadium's first season of 2018, which the Dockers won by 3. So Crows looking for their first win at Freo with this venue. And the odds makers like the home side, favored by 10.5 at the moment.
I don't know what to do with this one.
Well, Matt Taberner found something against North, kicking a couple goals. So there's that if he stays healthy. And Luke Jackson versus Riley O'Brien is a cool ruck matchup just because it's two very different rucks. O'Brien just being the straight ahead, hit ball ruck, and Jackson having much more of the full field craft. I mean, he is a unicorn, but so is Mark Blitzos. Yep.
But I think so many different things could happen in this game.
Pick a 3-goal score, and not, for either side, not Jai Amos, not Taylor Walker, pick a 3-goal score.
Let's go Josh Tracy.
Okay, reasonable enough. And because you picked a Docker, I will pick a Crow, and it will be Isaac Rankin after having the crafty one last week.
There is no early Saturday game. We've got midday Saturday as well as Saturday night. And I think, for a Saturday with only 2 games, I think this is a damn good one. Starting off with a game that in past years, I probably wouldn't have thought much of, but it's 2 clubs that I've realized, I just haven't necessarily always paid enough attention to. And so this year, I'm going to try to pay attention to it more. I kind of do this in a lot of sports where I'll think man, I haven't really given this division or this conference or this group of teams much thought. Let's change that. And the Saints are definitely one of those. And I've enjoyed watching our first 2 games. And the Bombers are another one. So yeah, Bombers and Saints at Marvel, Saturday, 4:20 p.m. local time, which means 1:20 a.m. on the East Coast of the United States and 10:20 p.m. here. This is a Fox Soccer Plus game. Both teams 1-1. Bombers lost at Sydney. Saints beat Collingwood. Last year, these teams met round 3 at the G for the Saints' 150th celebration, where they played in front of a little over 69,000.
Nice.
And jumped out to a 34-0 lead.
Yeah, Saints just took over from the beginning there. Essendon applied a lot of pressure in the second half and managed to tie it 10 minutes into the fourth before St Kilda broke back away.
Mountain.
Boo. You returned to serve there. I remember Jack Higgins being a prominent one there. Mason Wood continued his really, really hot start to the season. He had at least 20 disposals and a goal in each of the first 3 rounds, and he broke his collarbone in that nasty collision this past week. Fuck.
And no Liam Henry.
Yeah, they're both 6+ weeks.
And no Max King.
Max King was suspended 1 game for a bump to Finn McRae's head very late in that Thursday night game. Incredibly unnecessary.
Yeah, after watching it, it was largely inconsequential, but it was stupid and unnecessary and had nothing to do with the game, so I get it. Those are the things that I'm in favor of punishing much more. Why aren't you just hitting this dude when it has nothing to do with the play?
And when the game's already been decided in your favor.
Oh, forget that part. This could be, it could be in a tie game in the final moments. I don't care.
I think this is a ripe opportunity, though, for Anthony Caminiti to come back into the AFL side after kicking 2 goals for Sandringham this past week. Also, I guess Dan Butler makes sense to come in there for Mason Wood, having gotten through his rehab assignment. Real watch on Ari Skonemaker, pick number 62, to take up some of the halfback job where Henry could have been. Skonemaker compiled 33 disposals and 13 marks in the reserves as the Zebras lost to Collingwood on Friday. Did they say zebras or zebras in Australia? I actually don't know.
I forget. I'm calling them zebras.
Zebra sounds cool, though. But you know my piece on Anthony Caminiti. I nailed my pick of him as a sleeper last year, having seen his Northern Knights highlights plus early work before being the SSP pickup for the Saints. If he can actually just kind of reel things in and not do stupid stuff kind of like what Max King did, then he could be a really valuable second or third forward option there, because it seems like the hierarchy right now is pretty clearly King, then Cooper Sharman. I think Caminiti could be right up there as a 2B or even up to a 2A.
Yeah, I don't think we follow a ton of Saints people outside of Saints TV, but Skonemaker, it's not Schoenmaker, it's Skonemaker, you think?
I believe so, yeah.
Well, people seem really happy with his performance, so would love to see him get in. Would be awesome for such a late pick to get in before so many first rounders have made their debuts.
Yeah, I mean, they have already seen their 2 top picks make debuts in Darcy Wilson and Lance Collard, who was a bit quieter in the 2s, and I don't expect to see back up as quickly.
It's funny, I liked his initial appearance, though, but it's always fun evaluating, whose draft class looks the best at first, at the time of the draft, then who looks the best after just a couple games, and then years later. Maybe the Saints, and there aren't many ways you want to emulate the Angels, but maybe it's a thing for teams with halos, where, you draft someone and they're, immediately ready, because that's, the Anaheim, no, they're not Los Angeles, it's Anaheim, I mean, I'd be ashamed to be from Anaheim too, but that is where they are. Anyway, my point is they've had this knack lately for drafting guys that are immediately ready to play at the MLB level, and it would be funny if that became the Saints thing too. Like, who knows if these guys are going to be all that good in 10 years? But ready now, yeah.
And they fit in. Speaking of key forwards who are going to be missing from suspension, Peter Wright, you were surprised that he accepted everything?
Yeah, I thought they would have challenged it. Maybe they weren't expecting the tribunal to come down as hard on him. But yeah, he was sentenced to death by Snoo.
You've been going at this really since this happened, but
you know, I've thought of it before, and it just seemed like with a high-profile case, it was a good time to break it out.
Thought you were going to say whip it out.
No, but I'm always in favor of making that reference. But yeah, basically the argument that Essendon gave that lost was just like, yeah, he was trying to shield himself, and he was trying to protect Cunningham as well because he like put his previously injured shoulder at risk.
It did not seem convincing, and I don't know, maybe Essendon realized how much of a losing battle they were fighting. But also, I don't think that defense was even all that valid considering the way the AFL is handling stuff like this after the Braden Maynard-Angus Brayshaw incident.
Yeah, I think some of that is just like reactionary to that, where now they're trying to make sure that that precedent isn't established again, and they're trying to like undo some of that.
Well, with Wright out, potential for Harry Jones to come back in, dropped after round 1. As much as I like Harry Jones, I would rather see them bring in Nate Caddy, pick 10, and get him his first game. See if Jones could find something with a bit more consistent time in the twos.
Mason Redman, coming off his suspension, will be back in. Andrew McGrath should be good to go. He was dealing with an ankle thing. Will Setterfield dealing with a knee thing. Yeah, I would put both of those in the probable category, and then questionable would be Jake Kelly.
Correct, Jake. He didn't play last week, was a laid out, sick, would have been his 150th. I think that's why they didn't have a banner.
And then Darcy Parrish with his hamstring, which I'm surprised. I thought he would
have been in sooner.
Yeah, I thought he was nearly ready last week.
And you also thought he would have been a cap.
Yeah, it would have been nice. But to this very brief point, we're doing fine without him.
If that group is in, all those guys, I mean, Ben Hobbs and Elijah Sadas would be at risk in terms of that more forward group, and maybe Nick Hind in the back. Hind is a good sub candidate as well. This will be a double up this year. The red and black squads meeting again, also at Marvel in round 20.
What does the matchup for this one look like visually? Like, well, if the Bombers are the home team, do the Saints wear,
I would think like the red clash with the big shield?
And then when the Saints are home, that is really tough.
I feel like the Saints would just wear the red with the big shield regardless.
Nah, maybe they'll just both wear their regular ones and we'll just live with it.
I think the red with the big shield for the Saints would be the right way to go, though.
Yes, but how often does that happen?
Often enough that I'm considering it.
Saints are favored by 8.5, and I might actually stretch this one out a couple more points, maybe like 11.5. And I say that, here's my logic. Both teams have significant outs, and the Saints probably have the more significant outs, or at least more of them, but I think they have better depth to handle it. I think they're in better position to withstand it.
I was pretty much going to say the same thing. I think they've got better depth at those positions, especially if they do bring in Stonemaker and with Caminiti and Butler ready to come back in. I think it's more like for like there. I say that slowly and with a bit of skepticism. I'm just really keen on Stonemaker and hoping he gets in to really show what he can do at the top level.
You know, Benjamin, 78% of our listeners are between 18 and 35 years old, so they probably want to start a podcast like we did.
How did you know that number, Ethan?
Thanks to the analytics we have for Spotify for Podcasters.
Formerly known as Anchor, sorry Frio fans, Spotify for Podcasters has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast from your phone or your computer. No fancy software needed.
It's so easy you can edit it while drunk.
And Spotify for Podcasters doesn't just allow you to upload to Spotify, you can also distribute your podcast on platforms like Apple, Stitcher, and more, just like we do.
Best of all, it's completely free.
Not only is it free, you can even make money from listener support or ad revenue. Hint, hint.
Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to podcasters.spotify.com to get started today.
And welcome back. Don't forget, we're on a bunch of social media platforms: Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, at Americans Footy.
Be like the Tasmania Devils and follow us.
And be like Collingwood and comment on our YouTube videos.
Yes.
He's on Twitter at Castle Media. I'm at BenjaminHK01, and Brian Harambe is now at his perch on the other side of the window blinds. We go on to Saturday night, and at around 1:28 or 9 a.m., I know what we're going to be doing on our Saturday morning, the 30th. We're going to be singing Never Tear Us Apart.
Oh, yeah. God, this is going to be such a fun Saturday, even though it's just 2 games.
Well, it means we'll be able to focus on the action even more. Port hosting Melbourne, Adelaide Oval, 7 p.m. sharp local time, 7:30 p.m. for the Victorian audiences, 4:30 a.m. Eastern, 1:30 Pacific. This is the first Fox Sports 1 AFL telecast of 2024.
So to all you poors who don't have Fox Sports 2, here's your chance. I mean, there's different levels of the poors. You know, there's the poors that don't have Watch AFL, but have Fox Sports 2. There's the poors that only have FS1. Yeah, this is really a chance for everybody. Like, you have no excuse. Oh, it's too late. No, it's not. You're going to watch.
Have an early Saturday if you're on the East Coast.
Or stay up.
That's what we'll be doing. Both teams coming in with 2 wins, the Power 2-0 after winning at Richmond, and the D's winning against Hawthorn at the G. Oh, actually, double extension news for this game. Alir for the Power and Bailey Laurie for the Demons, both extending through 2026. I would say one of those right now is more notable than the other.
Speaking of Alir, you know, he was announced for DJing a set during the...
Gather round.
He was?
Yeah, there's going to be him and Josh Rochelle. If you had asked me which crow, and I probably would have come up with Rochelle pretty quickly, but if you would have asked me who from the Power, I would not have thought of Alir.
Who would you have thought? Like Zach Butters?
Probably like Horn Francis, maybe Butters, maybe Lockie Jones or Sam Powell Pepper. Or
You know what? Nah, Horn Francis and Alir back to back.
But yeah, Josh Rochelle and DJ Alir, sure.
This was a fun game in 2023. It was, I think, to kick off the Sir Doug Nicholls rounds. Port Adelaide going as Yarda Pulte for the first time and defeating Narm by 4 points. Even with rain in the fourth quarter, super entertaining second half. And the rain probably facilitated Zach Butters' monster 41 disposal, 10 clearance, and 2 goal game. I think it was Rosie, though, with the final goal. And then Ken Hinckley had a little jig at the end when the siren went.
Yeah, it was a funny turnaround. Like, I think that game was what really made it obvious. Like, this is a team that, you know, a year earlier couldn't win close ones.
And then they won all the close ones.
Yeah. There were less than 38,000 at that game. Again, the weather might have factored in. I hope they really pack it for this one.
I mean, it's a great lead up to the...
Gather round.
I think it probably also helps that it's only their second home game, and the first one was against, you know. So I think there will be a lot of excitement for this.
And thinking back to 2022, I mean, less dramatic, obviously, if you think back to round 4, where Port had their first goalless half in the AFL.
Oh my God, that game was ass.
And I think Zach Butters had a really stupid free at the end of that half to cement it being goalless. Scott Lysette also dislocated his shoulder in that game and hardly played again in the AFL after that. That round 10 game last year was one of his best, like in his I consider it almost his last hurrah, being able to disrupt Max Gawn. But round 18, 2022, that was the Kazi Pickett show at Traeger Park. I remember watching that one from an Oregon Airbnb, which had no chairs.
For Port, this should be game number 100 for Todd Marshall.
Refound his form last week, just schooling Dylan Grimes.
I mean, so how much of that was finding his form and how much of that was him playing against Dylan Grimes?
I think psychologically, it's a big one for him.
Yeah, I think the bigger thing was Jeremy Finlayson kicking a couple, but
3, I believe.
Yeah. Anyway, 100 for Marshall. They should have Lockie Jones. He got subbed off last week with a torqued calf or, you know, like just a deep bruise or contusion. He played through it for a while, and then they said, all right, let's make a switch. They might have been waiting, like, hey, let's see if, let's not do this right away and wait and see if someone else gets hurt. Let's play this safe. I'm not sure what the logic was there, or if it was just, all right, he can't do this anymore. And then Jed McEntee, who got concussed in round 1, should be available. They will once again be without Jason Horn-Francis with his hamstring injury. Can he be back next week, or do we have any timetable on that?
No timetable, really. It's just kind of, he might have been ready this week. He wasn't. So expect him for Essendon then. I love that Port and Essendon are going at it in the with the late trade between them in the offseason. Zerk Thatcher and Dersma facing their old teams, but there's so much that I like about this matchup for the past few years. Who does Willem Drew tag?
We'll see, because Clayton Oliver left training early Wednesday with a finger injury. Dislocated? Did he get stepped on? What do we know?
Don't know much. We know that he should still be good to play, but the timing is comedic considering all the stuff, I think, in Parliament with an MP saying, from Glenn Bartlett, one of the former club leaders, that Melbourne covered up drug positives with fake injuries, and with the Joel Smith saga ongoing. Just
the solution is to just post really graphic, detailed videos of every injury that anybody suffers. That'll show them.
Well, if Petrarca, Viney, and Oliver are all in, where would you go? You make the call. Who would Willem Drew tag and why?
I would start with no tag and then stick him to whoever starts off hot. Probably the way I would do it.
I think I would start with Viney and then maybe have to shift to Petrarca. Drew's able to follow into the forward line pretty well, but in terms of the immediate clearance work right at the source, I would say Viney, and then Butters can do more against Oliver. Speaking of Jack Viney, this will be his 200th game.
Oh, I cannot wait for him to get chaired off.
If Port wins and he gets chaired off, Kane Corns will have already cracked his knuckles into oblivion.
I mean, would he be bothered if these win and he does that?
Oh, probably, because it's against Port. This is Kane Corns we're talking about. The bigger Demons questions lie in their back ranks, because Stephen May is out with broken ribs, maybe only 1 week. Jake Lever is questionable with right kneecap soreness. Both could be good to go for the Crows at the start of the gather round. And maybe this could be a bit of a management job for May with the 5-day turnaround. Adam Tomlinson was very active in the VFL, I believe equal high in disposals. He should return for May. And Marty Hoare could be elevated to the 22, see if he can put anybody on Hoare Island.
You are a smelly pirate hooker. Why don't you go back to your home on Hoare Island?
If Lever misses, you can swing Harrison Petty to the back as well. We talked in the recap about the positional versatility that the D's have. I know it was Chris Fagan who said that about his Lions, but I think Melbourne has more of the actual depth there. And maybe if Oliver can't go, then I guess you'd probably see Bailey Laurie.
Porter favored by 13.5, and we're going to do this again in round 22 at the G.
Port has been able to feed off home ground advantage in general since we started watching, 2022 aside. And with the defensive questions, I'm not really bothered by the line, especially considering the Talls being better off this past week and Charlie Dixon being able to victimize someone in there.
So I would think when you're looking at if you were to have people rank all 8 games for this round, that and the grand final rematch would probably end up being the top 2.
That second tier, I'd probably put Good Friday evening out west and Essendon St Kilda.
Yeah, and our first game Sunday would be last. It's the Bulldogs hosting the Eagles at Marvel. This is going to be mostly talking about what happened last year.
Well, firstly, let's just say that this is the 1 p.m. game at Marvel Stadium Sunday afternoon.
Will we get an audio clip like we got from Easter Sunday last year?
In this case, would it be Marcus Bonapelli with the Easter Sunday barrel?
Could it be Libba?
Maybe Libba, but BT won't be on this game, so it won't be nearly as exciting. Yeah, it was Easter Sunday last year, though, at Marvel, where Stringer had the barrel in an extremely inaccurate game. Now, 1 Eastern means 10 a.m. out west, just like how we do it for Ravens kickoffs a lot of the year.
For every now and then I have to remind myself, oh yeah, the Pacific is their east.
Yeah, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific, Saturday evening on Fox Soccer Plus. Round 23 last year. We watched the first half of this actually with a bunch of the Golden Gate Roos and some of the LA Dragons as well, because our friend Rick Shaibani came up with the Dragons to play them. So we were over at the Roos hangout of Buzzworks and watched as the Eagles got off to a really fast start. Then the Dogs got back into it, but were inaccurate throughout. Jamie Cripps kicked 5 straight. Jeremy McGovern was excellent, and when he was one-on-one with Aaron Naughton, he won that battle. I know Tim Kelly got votes as well.
I think Cripps got the 3 votes, though.
He did. Tied his career high there with 5. But the player that I remember from this game, who has not seen AFL action since for some reason, is Zane True. Came on as the sub and had a fourth quarter goal and facilitated 2 others. The Bulldogs lost their last 7 games decided by 14 points or fewer in 2023, and it was this one that really was why they didn't make finals.
This was a very, very funny game.
Because the Eagles won?
Yes.
Because the Bulldogs were inaccurate?
And because their coaching got exposed and just their lineup decisions and everything.
Adam Simpson outcoached Luke Beveridge. And I wrote,
wasn't my favorite moment.
I remember what he said after the game. We tried to tank the last few minutes, but it didn't work.
I have really grown to appreciate his sense of humor. Also, like, his celebration after they finally kicked a goal to end that, I forget how long it was, scoring drought last week.
Like 70 minutes, if not more.
Yeah. He has, like, the demeanor and the attitude to get through
this shit. Yeah. I have something else that we could talk about, though, because for the Eagles, I think everything kind of revolves around the ruck in terms of what they do this week. Do they let Harry Barnett have some more exposure and experience at the top level, or do they realize, no, he would be hopeless against Tim English, let's put Bailey J back in there? I hope it's the latter as much as I want Barnett to succeed, and I would hope that also means that Ryan Merrick would get a shot in the 22.
Yeah, this does not seem like the game for a young guy to build his confidence, although, well, I mean, we can't all be Toby Conway.
And we'll have fun talking about that in the preview.
On the Bulldog side, Nick Caulfield's going to be out like 3 months with that shoulder injury because, of course,
hadn't played the last 2 years. Second game, I think, for the Dogs, and this happens.
Ed Richards is out concussed because he had a not fun meeting with David Swallow's shoulder.
Pretty much crashed out. Is this the week where Jack McRae gets in?
I feel he's got to. The question is, does Rory Lobb get in? Because he scored 4 goals in the VFL.
Yeah, 4 in the reserves against the Giants. Pretty comprehensive win there. McRae racked up 46 disposals and 16 clearances. Riley Garcia with 41, 8 tackles and 2 goals. I don't think he was a sleeper for us ever, but just someone who had always been under the radar and on the fringe. So who stays and who goes there?
I know it's going to be something stupid. I don't know what they're going to do. Or, you know what? Maybe this is a week where you manage one of your vets. Although, considering they lost to him last year
without Liva because he was concussed.
Yeah, I don't know.
I honestly wouldn't be opposed to them managing Liva in this game. And if the Eagles win again, then it would be completely
For the funny!
Defensively, with Caulfield and Richards out, Taylor Duray and Alex Keith are in the mix, and my sleeper, Jimmy O'Donnell, is available after battling multiple injuries, including a concussion in the VFL. The visiting team has won each of the last 3 meetings, going back to mid-2021, but the Bulldogs are favored by 47.5, and I cannot see them losing to the Eagles at Marble again.
I can't see them losing. I can see them
drawing.
No. I can see them coming off of a week where they had played so well, delivering a very unfulfilling win.
Richmond and City has been another fun matchup over the past few years, and I think there's a lot less of that excitement going into this year's game, even if somehow Sam Naismith gets in against his old team, which I don't find likely. This will be an FS2 game. 1 Eastern Sunday morning, 10 p.m. Pacific, late Saturday night, 4 p.m. at the G, because the Swans get 3 trips to the G during the home and away.
And the Giants get 1?
I think they get 2.
The Suns get 1.
Yeah, that's closing round. I thought the Giants got 2. I know they've got the Ds there. And I thought they had 1 more.
Do the Crows get multiple? Probably not. Let's see what I can find. The Giants go there twice in 3 weeks, actually.
Yep, called it.
The Suns go there. You said end of the year. Is that against Richmond?
Yeah, it's closing round.
And then, let's see, the Crows, 1, 2,
2. Port's the only other with 3.
I assume the Swans will be wearing the throwbacks again.
Yeah, the South Melbourne throwback.
Do they wear those at Marvel too, or just at the G?
I forget, but I mean, makes sense, especially in the 150th year. This was a double up last year. Firstly, in the Gather Round. Tom Papley loves the celebration, and he celebrated a lot because he kicked 6. Joel Amartey had a really good start and then injured his hamstring. And Richmond, after starting the second half decently, were really undisciplined, especially once they decided to sub out Trent Cotchin. Not the right move, Dimma. Then in round 17, a surprising victory for the Tigers at the G. 2 debuts, Sam Banks and Jacob Bauer. And Bauer injured his hamstring 78 seconds in his second kick.
Well, that's one more than Cam Guthrie had in the simulation match or whatever we were calling it.
Community series, I think.
No, it was not community series. It was before that.
Oh, that was the scratch match against Carlton, right? Ugh. Well, Jack Ross led Richmond's scoring with 2 goals too, so some sliding doors there.
Tobin Curvis earned himself a 3-week suspension for his bump on Jake Lloyd that day.
Lloyd's going to be one to watch this week because of Sydney's outs, with Harry Cunningham out concussed thanks to another suspension-worthy action, that one Peter Wright's doing. Does Lloyd go back to defense, or does he stay in the midfield and on the wing? I think maybe some of that might have to do with what goes on with Robbie Fox. He's trying to get over a calf injury. He could be a bit of a cover for Cunningham, or he could have that annoyance assignment again. Maybe there's less of a need for that against Richmond, but maybe he could try it on Tyler Young, who...
Yeah, that doesn't seem... With respect to Tyler Young, who I think could end up being a pretty solid player, that doesn't seem worthwhile. What about... I mean, he's not so much a one-on-one defender, but what about Nick Vlastone?
Okay, I could see that.
If there's anyone I would... Or maybe like a forward tag on, it would be Vlastone, because he directs everything out of the back.
Either that or maybe like a full field running role with Liam Baker. But I like the idea of Vlastone a lot. And I think Longmire would be the type to try that sort of thing. We're also watching to see if Taylor Adams can get in for his Swans debut. Unsure yet on the status of his knee injury going into Sunday.
Richmond, James Trezise. First time we've heard about syndesmosis this year. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. Is that the first time we've heard about it?
Maybe.
But yeah, he's out 4 to 6 weeks. You would bring Nathan Broad in there if he's ready. Morris Rioli Jr. was a super laid out with back soreness, and then Tyler Young could be back from his concussion.
If he is, then that's why I was thinking about putting Robbie Fox on him, because Young is that main tall one-on-one there.
Still, I don't think he's like enough to merit someone going one-on-one.
And with Cunningham being out, plus I think Logan McDonald should be able to win out against him still. Just food for thought there.
Guys who could end up getting omitted. Sam Banks, who I did not realize was playing until he got subbed out. Tom Brown.
Not to be confused with the former reporter.
Judson Clark.
He was the sub last week because of Rioli's laid out. That put my Kelty Lafau into the 22.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's, back in the VFL.
Or as a sub.
Yeah.
Just more Mike Kelty for all of us, please.
Thompson Dow. I thought he was okay, but a couple of Richmond fans we follow were pretty critical of his performance.
Opens up an opportunity maybe for Kane McAuliffe at pick 40. Pretty high motor midfielder there. Or Tyler Sonsi to come back in. Sonsi served his suspension, plus got in for round 1 in the reserves.
Do they do something with Dylan Grimes, or does he just kind of have free reign?
I think Adam Uze is much more likely to swing the axe than Damien Hardwick ever would have been, but I don't think it's going to be this week.
Yeah, I feel like if this keeps up, though, he could end up seeing himself managed, not omitted, but managed.
I don't think you would say omitted for somebody like him. I just don't. Swans are 21.5-point favorites. I don't mind that line. I think the questions with Richmond's defense are much more pressing than that of Sydney, with multiple options for them to cover. And I also don't think we're going to have drama like we had in 2022 at the SCG. Richmond led by 33 in the middle of the second quarter in that round 11 meeting. But in the fourth, the Swans had 6 of 7 goals in a pretty lengthy period, with Buddy Franklin kicking 3 of those, including the go-ahead goal. At the siren, Chad Warner didn't hear a whistle and kicked the ball into the stands. Richmond was clamoring for a 50. Dion Prestia was given a free kick, but not the 50, and I don't think we really had an issue with it, but it very much went against how, like, literal law of the game rather than the spirit a lot of umpiring had been up to that point in 2022. Remember the arms out 50s?
Oh my God, those were fucking awful. This year, it's been less about umpiring and more about score reviews. There's been some stuff with, like, umpires being really reluctant to pay holding the ball.
And poor umpiring this past Thursday, and I know people were harping on, there was a former Saints player umpiring. Well, one of the other umpires has been seen wearing Collingwood gear at games, so is it time to talk about Easter Monday?
Yeah. Easter David Mundy.
Doesn't work. Nope,
there are people that pronounce Monday as Mundy.
Yeah, that's like
a Midwest thing, I guess. Anyway.
Yeah, we're going to have like a recording session probably immediate after this game ends.
Will we? With like a break to jump on to the Hoops Crew post-game stuff, which will be a couple hours after the game?
Maybe, yeah, I think that's right.
All right. Hawthorn is the home team for this one, taking on Geelong at the G, 9:20 p.m. our time. On the East Coast, it'll officially be Monday, 12:20 a.m. It is 3:20 locally. It's a Fox Soccer Plus game. The Hawks are 0-2. The Cats are 2-0. Geelong crushed the Hawks last year after trailing at halftime. A 65-0 third quarter, which kind of shook off like 3.5 weeks of frustration.
Jeremy Cameron scored 7-1 and ran over the umpire after that last one.
Hawthorn had a ramen sign and then got outscored by 90.
Yeah, 100-10. I think it was like more of a sign like play more on the ground, like wet weather style. I want to see some Cats fans just coming into the game with like huge ramen signs to reference that one. That's what I would bring to the game if I were there.
Well, I was thinking it would be something about how, Tomahawk being better than a bunch of Hawks.
Yeah, fair too, because it is his 350th, the second to accomplish that all for Geelong after Joel Selwood, who he'll likely pass for the club games record this year. Selwood, I think, hit 355. Hawkins will be 24th in the league to the 350-game milestone after Travis Boak became number 23 last week. 11 times Geelong's goal leader. Cameron broke the streak last year. 5-time All-Australian with a captaincy of it in 2022, which I think surprised everybody, let alone him. And 3 flags. He's currently 14th in VFL AFL history with 786 goals, one off of Jack Revolt. So an easy chance there for Hawkins to really step up on his milestone day and hit the number 13 spot. 13! Sorry, Blake Hardwick, your 150th is really going to be overlooked here. Actually, not sorry at all. Nothing against you, Blake, but this is Hawkins' day. I also love that Hawthorn will have to go down the highway this year for round 17. It's been a long time since that happened, and I think it's a sign like, yeah, Hawthorn, you're no longer special. Richmond has to go down the highway as well.
It would have been so much better with Hardwick, but it's still going to be good.
Hey, at least Hawthorn's got a Hardwick.
So I would be more worried about this game.
I thought you still worry with how...
Yes, but more is comparative. Because I think Hawthorn will play significantly better than last week. I thought last week was one of their worst games they've played in years.
I don't know. I mean, we know what the plan was, and I was kind of able to understand why, but it just fed into what the Demons were doing even more with their kind of flooding in the back half, cutting off everything in the corridor.
But I think losing to them in 2022 is still fresh in everyone's memory, and I think they won't overlook that. I don't think they'll take this game for granted.
I mean, I don't think any game is going to be taken for granted here. A rivalry like this, big occasion, the milestone for Hawkins, and needing to step up in the midfield without Patrick Dangerfield. His hamstring is forcing him out for at least a fortnight.
This sounds like the sort of thing that, if this was like end of the season, try to play through it. But when it's round 3 and you're 2-0, as much as I think it'll really hurt not having him against the Dogs, being in this position allows you to manage these things better.
Well, if there's a game for Jai Newcomb to do big things and kickstart his season, I think this would be it, not having Dangerfield in there. But the combination of Tom Atkins and, well, even if Tanner Bruin doesn't come back in, Mark O'Connor having done well on the inside last week, and I would say, you know, especially if Bruin is back in, let O'Connor tag Newcomb.
Now, I don't know if you'd have to tag him from the start, which is crazy because, you know, I am the biggest Jai Newcomb is good guy, but his first 2 weeks have been pretty pedestrian. So I would probably not start with the tag on him, but have it like discussed that it might be needed.
Oh, speaking of Mark O'Connor, 2-year extension through 2026.
Sweet.
So we'll see more than a decade at the club. He arrived from Dingle in 2016.
Ah, yes, Dingle from the Quandale region.
This is a message to Quandale Dingle. Please stop messaging me. Go to hell.
I know Ethan has been waiting for a time to put a Daniel Larson soundbite in here.
I mean, it's not our first. It's actually our second.
It is?
You included one at the very end of an episode.
Oh, why? I forgot that was him.
Good night, everyone. Thank you all for your support.
But yeah, there should be some lineup changes this week. I would, you know, does Jack Bowes go from the VFL or come straight in is a question. Mitch Hardy with 29 disposals and 7 clearances in the VFL. He's making a case. He was the midseason pick last year, and I was a little surprised he didn't get a game then. So maybe he gets in. I would be very surprised if Oisin Mullen or Mitch Nevitt were in there. Mullen was just thrust into a tough spot, and I think of him more as like a ball-moving halfback than, you know, a midfielder, because he's not, you know, his speed is his biggest asset, not so much the physicality. And then, you know, Nevitt was just kind of thrown in as the sub, and
at the very, very, very end, just like, oh shit, we gotta get you in so you can get the match check.
They wanted to get him in probably like 3 to 5 minutes earlier than he got in, but play was never near the bench, so they weren't able to really get it done.
I think with Dangerfield out, it just makes sense for Hardy to come in just like the mature age, a kind of ball magnet midfielder. I mean, he seems like a perfect Geelong kind of guy from this kind of their knack for picking up the mature agers.
I will ask like every week, is Zach Toohey going to get managed? But I think he doesn't for this game. I think, you know, this sort of, you know, prestigious rivalry and all, probably play the veterans.
My biggest question is how you manage the rucks for these couple weeks. I mentioned it last time, but Toby Conway did so well against the Bulldogs in round 24 that he necessitated Luke Beveridge to actually make a move and put Rory Lobb on him rather than Tim English. I would say, yes, give Conway the job again in the gather round. But with it being a short turnaround, 5 days to that matchup, I think Rhys Stanley would still go here, especially as Ned Reeves has been struggling to start the year.
Yeah, and I think it's a better matchup for Stanley than the first couple guys he's faced. Because look, Stanley, as I've said, is not the beefiest guy. So like going up against like a Riley O'Brien or a Jared Witts, that's not for him. Like I will be screaming for Conway to play against Witts for sure. But I think for a guy like Reeves that's, you know, more tall. I mean, he's not skinny by any means, but he's more tall than anything. I think it's a game that he's probably in better shape to play in.
Having said that, will it be Reeves? Because Lloyd Meek was Hawthorn's best on ground in their VFL effort.
I hope it's Reeves because I think Lloyd Meek is good and I'm always scared of him.
Because of what he did for Freo against the Cats in that full court press game?
Yeah, and just, I think he's probably just a better pure ruckman. I think Reeves has some ability to work as a forward.
Like a tall half forward, I remember him having that job. But I'm not sure how quickly Sam Mitchell will make that change. I think they could easily try to beef up the midfield, though, and overwhelm that younger group with Henry Hustwaite, my sleeper, and Harry Morrison.
Harry!
Having strong showings in there. Defensively, we're waiting for Ethan Phillips to make his debut, and Jai Sarong has slid back there very seamlessly. So there are a lot of questions there, and I'm not sure how much Mitchell just wants to change the game plan or if he wants to change the players along with it. The Cats are 19.5-point favorites. Knowing you'd probably put this closer.
Yeah, my expectation for this game is a win. realistically, I'm still going to bet against the Cats because that's what I do. But I think it's going to be like a close, frustrating game. Because again, the Hawks aren't going to play as poorly. There's no way. They're going to be better than that. This will probably be the week their set shot kicking is actually good. Hope it's not. Probably will be. And yeah, this is going to be a challenge.
Does your main character pick come from this game?
God, I've struggled to think of a main character pick. And I'm going to make a bit of an abstract one again. But I think it's my turn to do that this week.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure who is going to do this.
But someone will.
Yes. Someone will end up like in the front row after going after a ball and, going over the boundary, and they will eat some popcorn that somebody's holding in the front row.
You're thinking about your friend Frank.
Yes. I mean, other people have done it. Miguel Cabrera and Prince Fielder have done things like that, but I think, or maybe they'll eat someone's hot dog or pie or whatever it is. There's going to be someone in the front row
grabbing a bite from the stands.
Yeah. So you're eating fans' food. That's my prediction.
So Ethan's friend, Frankie Ferrari,
we may have mentioned this before.
Firstly, amazing name. Played college ball for the University of San Francisco and professionally in Spain. But during his time in college, in a game that we attended in Berkeley where they were playing Cal, he grabbed some popcorn from someone just in the first row after, I think, sliding while trying to finish a layup.
Yeah, or like he ended up, his momentum carried him past the basket and he ended up basically in the front row and he took some popcorn. So that's going to happen this week, except in footy. Usually it's a baseball thing. This time it's going to be a footy thing.
I think there's more potential for that in the with the suburban venues. So I'm surprised you didn't wait on that until next week.
No, I just felt like this is a week where something silly needs to happen.
Okay.
Otherwise, let's see. Other main character pick, I guess you could go with Dan Kirkland making his debut.
If he does.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like kind of a hometown thing as well. And it's a demon, but it's not Harrison Petty. Because Petty would be too obvious. Kate Chandler is a South Australian. And I think after a strong start to the season, kicking 3 goals in round 1 and another 2 this past week, I really think he could just go out for a really big game against one of his hometown teams. This is another one that could kind of roll over into next week as well. He's a Norwood product. And I was surprised that there wasn't ever any more talk about him being lured back home, especially with how long it took for him to get steady time at the AFL level. So maybe there's something this week. But that's going to do it for us here on a lengthy Round 3 preview. As a reminder, we're on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at Americans Footy.
I'm at Castle Media on Twitter.
I'm at Benjamin HK01.
Brian Harambe is on Instagram at cat named Brian. Did he go under the bed? He's here.
He's here.
I'll post a photo. Might be up by the time this episode's up, but I thought I was going to get a photo of him doing cute stuff, and instead he kind of looks possessed.
I mean, cats are probably possessed in some way, shape, or form.
But yeah, this one was a funny one. Here's how we're going to end this episode. I'm going to show it to you, and you're going to react to it.
Whoa. He is like...
Don't describe it.
Is he half meow or half like...
He was just like stretching on the stairs, which is kind of what he does to greet me, but it was interesting.
I like this one a lot. So catch that on his Instagram at cat named Brian. Bye.